Hi guys, Ricky Pope here, and this week on the Christian Nerds Unite podcast, I'm joined by Simon Amadeus Pillario of the Word for Word Bible comic, and Paul Snuggs, a game designer, as we discuss their new card game, the Great Commission Strategic Card Game, plus scripture and nerdy news, and we'll get to all of that right after this. Let's read some scripture. Deuteronomy 6, 4-9. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit down at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your house and on your gates. I really love this passage. God says to know the commandments. And I would expand that to say, know the scripture and the gospel. To teach it to your children and to discuss it. And when you're out and about, when you're at home, even when you go to bed, to make it so much a part of you that others would see it in you. Can others see the gospel through the way you live? Are you having spiritual conversations with your children? In today's podcast, we talk about a game that is all about sharing the gospel. It could be a great and fun way to help start those conversations. I pray that today we all live our lives in such a way that others can see Christ in us. And we take the opportunity to use the things like games and nerdy entertainment to start spiritual conversations with our family and friends. Now for some nerdy news. Marvel has been the focus of a lot of nerdy news over the past couple of weeks. Deadpool and Wolverine, which has Ryan Reynolds' loudmouth Deadpool teaming up with Hugh Jackman's iconic Wolverine, has brought in $1.08 million over just 23 days, which gives it the title for the highest grossing R-rated film of all time at the global box office. Now, whether this film will help truly right the ship for Marvel going forward is yet to be seen, but it is clear that this film has something that the past several Marvel movies has not. The other big news for Marvel came when they announced the return of Robert Downey Jr., this time as Dr. Doom. There is a lot of speculation as to how this will work, but with the focus on the Marvel multiverse, there's a number of ways this could happen. We've seen a Tony Stark as Dr. Doom in the comics. Once it was Victor Von Doom in Tony's body. Another time it was more of Tony defeating Doom and wearing his green cape, but not really taking on the name. There are other comic stories that seem to lean into this somewhat, into a Tony Stark Doom kind of combination. We'll have to wait and see exactly what Marvel Studios' plans will be for this one. In our interview today, we talk with Simon Amadeus Pillario of the Word for Word Bible comic and Paul Snuggs, a game designer, as we discuss their new game, the Great Commission Strategic Card Game. Their Kickstarter for the game funded in only 11 hours and has already doubled their goal with 19 days left. Make sure you click on the links down in the show notes below and back this exciting card game. Now let's get right into our interview. Simon and Paul, it is so great to have you on the Christian Nerds Unite podcast today.
That's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Now, Simon, you've been with us before. But for the benefit of those who might not be familiar with you, tell us a little bit about who Simon is and why they might have heard of you before.
So I'm the creator of the Word for Word Bible comic, and that's a series of graphic novels which includes every word of the biblical text in each of the books. It's historically accurate, so it's all the real places, weapons and armour from the time, things like that. And because it doesn't cut any of the words out, it's also untamed. So some of the books are like 15 plus, but most of our books are 12 plus, and so they are they've got all the words included, and they look a bit like this.
Very cool. And now, Paul, you are helping. We're actually not talking about the Word for Word Bible comic today. We're actually talking about a new card game that you guys are coming out with. And Paul, you're kind of the guy behind the card game. So tell us a little bit about Paul and how you decided to get into the making card games.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Paul. I guess I'm a gaming granddad. I have great interest in games. I play with family and gaming groups, but I particularly wanted to look for a game. This is going back some time, but look for a game that was Christian-based, faith-based game that basically wasn't a Bible quiz. I mean, there's a lot of games around in the Christian market which boil down to knowledge of the Bible, which is fantastic. I just find it difficult myself to make a game around that. So I started to look at this. I hate to think how many years ago, but it was a lot. It was quite a long time ago. I met Simon through some Christian conferences. Simon was with Word for Word Bible comic exhibiting that, and I was also helping my daughter, who's got a Christian gift company. Got at my house, and so we met together, and I said, "Oh, I'm developing this game. Are you interested in games at all?" And we hit it off immediately, and ever since we've been tinkering with this and changing that and play testing and having a whale of a time just developing. It's my first game. It's the first thing I've done in this space. So yeah, it's fun. It's good fun.
Very cool. So Simon, how did you get interested in the idea of a game coming out of the Word for Word Bible comic?
Well, as Paul was saying, when when I played the game and saw how it worked and stuff, initially I was like, oh, card game. But then as we started playing it, you could just tell that it's got the theme is really strong, which we'll probably get into in a minute. But there's a lot of actual sort of theology and kind of interesting biblical kind of themes that come up in the game because of how you have to kind of try and manage and all the resources and use the characters and things like that. It's more than just, I suppose, like a quiz or even just like a vague theme like build a wall, but it's a biblical wall or something like that. It's actually doing the things that you might do in your Christian walk, but on the cards and with random stuff comes up and random problems occur and they come up in an interesting way. So as we get more into that, I think hopefully people will be able to see exactly what we mean by that. And then obviously any card game needs good artwork, so we're like, why don't we use the comic for this?
Awesome. Well, Paul, tell us a little bit about the mechanic. It is a card game. So, and I know there are lots of different kinds of card games out there. So tell us a little bit about the mechanic and how that all came to be.
Okay, so the game is a tableau builder. It's a card-based tableau building game. So you're building effectively an engine. If I just talk about mechanics, basically what you're doing is you are going out into the world to try to make disciples. So you're spreading the gospel of Christ. And you're building a church, your own local community. Okay, it's a cooperative game, so multiple players play together as different churches, helping one another. And what I wanted to put into that as a mechanic was, a number of mechanics, was to work out in our Christian lives what are the challenges that we have in our walk. What kind of things do we get attacked by and have to overcome? And so the game uses an action point system where you have a number of actions that you can use. Your people within the community have each got their own abilities. Okay, so we're using a mechanic to first of all reach out to these people in the community. Okay, then when they're in our community and they're effectively saved, they come with specific gifting, and most of those are unique. So somebody might have a healing ministry, somebody might be able to, particular wisdom, and we recognize that there's trouble and sin and conflict both in the time that it's set, and it is set in the first century, so it's in the it's going alongside the book of Acts, the Apostles, with the Word for Word Bible comics. That's where the artwork comes from. So of course it thematically fits building the church from the very beginnings, and mechanics such as there's a bit of risk taking because when we go out to preach, for example, we don't know the hardness of heart, the resistance of some of these people, and some of the stats and so on cards represent the hardness of heart. So there's some risk involved in how big is your faith really. You're really going to go out and preach to 5 people at once or 50 people at once or whatever. So yeah, there's those kinds of things. There's obviously the concept of sin and conflict and troubles within the church affecting the life of the church. So if somebody comes into your church and they bring with them some trouble, there's degrees of different types of trouble, and you do nothing about it, but you do know that as a leader of the church that there's something milling around, there's something grumbling in your church, you do nothing about it. If by the end of the turn or the round, if you like, you have done nothing about it, it will affect the spiritual health of the church. So you can lose the game if your health of the church drops. You win the game by evangelizing, by reaching out to all the world. So you've got this big stack of cards of different people that you are trying to evangelize to bring in. So you win the game by evangelizing the world, and there's a mechanic for a timer, which is every round there's a new event that's drawn from a deck, which is world encompassing, so it affects all the churches. It can be for good, it could be for bad, and it could be for very bad. So there are the sorts of things that happen in the early church, in the Roman church in first century. So yeah, so you're building a tableau, you're each building your own tableau, but it's cooperative and allows you to help one other churches. So you're basically a common goal to reach the world.
And then there's one thing that you missed, and also we've not said what the name is. So the name of this game is The Great Commission. So obviously you have to go out and make disciples of all nations. So that's the name. So remember that, everybody. But the other thing that we missed is there's heaven cards. So although you're drowning in troubles and you've got too many people to deal with and you don't know what's happening and what power shall I use and everybody's exhausted, what am I going to do? You can pray, which restores the health of the church, but you also get these heaven cards, and they have a mixture of like spiritual gifts that you attach to people and little sort of blessing type things that you can play on people as time goes on, but you also get divine interventions, like you pull it and then instantly something quite massive happens that changes earth-shatteringly changing the game of like what God does to in the game at his moment with his purposes, and so that is a big part in our heaven deck. So the game is it tells a story as well, so as you get your leader, and in this case you're choosing somebody like Peter or Paul or and they each has their own abilities, and you choose a location like Jerusalem, Rome, Antioch, whatever, and they'll give a different ability as you set up, and then it tells a story because you've got these people in your church, and depending on who you got in your church depends what you can actually achieve. So you try and manage that well, but for example, of the heaven deck, you can get persecution, and then like a third of your church will get killed. Then Peter, for example, if you exhaust him, he can resurrect somebody. So It's like it's going to be it's really fun kind of mechanics like that where really powerful things can happen, and people can get demon possessed, and you've got people who can exorcise demons and send them out and stuff. So
wow. Well, so Simon, tell me a little bit about the artwork. Now I know we've got the backlog of things from the Word for Word Bible comic, but you guys could do original stuff. So what was the thought behind what the graphics and the choices you were going to make there were going to be?
That's right. Well, this one being set in Acts, obviously a lot of those images are drawn from the book. And one of the reasons for doing our Kickstarter when we are is because it coincides with the launch of Acts of the Apostles, the book. So when people hear about the Kickstarter, they'll be able to either go and just buy a standard book straight away and get it delivered nice and early, get it just before it comes out on Amazon. But also that we've got some special edition ones. So I held this one up. I don't know if it's going to do it very well, but you might be able to see it's got a holographic treatment on the front. And so we've got a few of these left. So we did the Kickstarter for the actual book, and then you always have some left. So you have to order a little bit more than you need in case any get broken or anything. So we've got like 20 or so of those, which are going to be available in there, and that's why. So that's the timing. But those pictures then that are inside the book, Peter, Paul, all the events that happen in Acts are used to inspire the events in the game. So you'll, as the events come out, you'll be like, oh yeah, and each card has like a verse that relates to, the thing. So it would be, Jewish persecution or persecution from the temple, and then it's got the verse from early on, and then that's one of the ones that hurts certain cards. And with the moment we've got it so that each of the cards is either Jewish or Gentile, which gives another element to certain things that are affecting them. So where the opposition's coming from, or what people are effective to reach other people and the areas and all this sort of stuff. So but there's a raft then of people in the book who come in who are they might be main characters, or they might just be people in the background, or people who are sort of side parts. In the world deck there's lots and lots of pictures of people that's just like, this is a person who who is that character. And then like I say, events, so we've got the events going on in Acts, and then like troubles they'll be drawn, they're taken actually from across the Gospels and Acts, so pride and the demonic possession, as I was saying, and the conflict, and one of the cards we've got as the on the Kickstarter you'll see is leaders martyred, and it's like holding the head up of James, so basically the artwork is all like ready to go, and we've been developing the actual card so that it looks nice and very functional, and has all the information needed, including, as I say, Bible verse in each one.
Awesome. Well, Paul, talking about mechanics, so how many people is this game designed for? What's the minimum? What's the maximum? What kind of, like, when somebody receives their deck, what's this going to look like?
Okay, so the game is cooperative from 1 to 3 players. Okay, the game was originally designed as a cooperative and full solo game. Okay, so it's from the ground up. It's not a solo mode that's been added on. You can take on the whole world yourself, and you get a restricted world if you are looking at doing yourself at the standard difficulty, because there are levels of difficulty depending on how experienced you are as players. So your collection, when you minister to the people and they come into your church, so you are then building from that point on. Okay. So solo mode works in a very, very almost identical way to the cooperative mode with multiplayers. Okay, when you're playing with multiple people, you can send or commission your members in your teams to go out to other churches, so you can actually play together in a real time fashion. We've got 3 phases in the game for each round, if you like. There's an event phase where these world-shattering or world-enhancing events occur, and then there's an actions phase, and the churches can basically work together. And we encourage people to decide who's going to maybe go out to evangelize, or who's going to be dealing with a lot of problems that they have in their community. We can send people across to other churches to help out, so if they've got particular gifting. That does mean, of course, the downtime is much less, because you're not actually taking turns. You can take turns, and we will probably recommend that for the first game or so, just to get the flow of the game. But you don't need to be taking turns. You can do everything together, just like churches will. 2 or 3 churches together can go and do various things. They can go and use prophecy, or they can go to look at various things that are in the world. I'm not going to give you spoilers, but they can identify things that are potentially going to happen, and then they can decide as a gaming group to decide how we're going to go and do this. What should we be going to do? Simon's been instrumental in bringing some of those sort of mechanics together, having another pair of eyes to suddenly look in and show me, or the pair of us, how churches can work together in certain ways has been really good. So that's the cooperative side, but it will work fully as a solo player.
Exactly, yeah. Just wanted to add, so exactly, you play it completely solo. When you play together, in a way, you're playing all solo, sort of at the same time, but you're not, because you can share. But like we were saying, the great example is prophecy. So if you've got a prophet in your church, you can look at face down cards that are in decks and be like, oh, okay, so the next event, for example, is this. It's a bad one. It's going to do this. So the person who can prophesy can look ahead, and then they can sort of tell everybody, by the way, everybody, there's going to be persecution ahead, so we need to prepare for that, And so like, oh, okay, let's pray. And then you might pick up another card, for example, from the Heaven deck, and some of them are like can mitigate some of the things that happen as a result of an event. So it's so that's how you work together, and the events are hitting you all at the same time. So that's how it kind of cooperation works.
That's brilliant. So it's a cooperative card game. I'm not super familiar with that idea of a cooperative card game. Most card games I've played are either head to head, or multiple people are playing. So what is the end goal? How do you say we won or we lost in this game?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's quite straightforward. If you win if you get through the world deck with all the people in it, and so you have succeeded. Okay. If the events all run out before you do that, you've lost. And the other way you lose is if your spiritual health of your church goes down, because you're not dealing with sin and troubles and all these conflicts and stuff that happen in the church. Your church basically dies because spiritual health is so low, it's ineffective. So it's like the church just disbands and that's it, it's done. So those are kind of win conditions. But you're saying, I'm not really familiar about cooperative games. So basically you're playing against the game. So the game's kind of timing you down. It's throwing all the events at you. That's the bad stuff. And so as a group of people, you're working together to work against the bad and get it done in time. Because if you hang about and you're too cautious, we'll just look after our people in our church, we're not going to bother with evangelism, the time just runs out. You're like, we lost.
Yeah, there's
Gotcha.
there's an optional scoring piece at the end as well, because each member of the public in the world deck, if you like, has this hardness of heart, so resistance to the gospel, and they are harder to win over for Christ. So there is this ability, should you want to, if you want to just see how well you've done, say 2 or 3 of you want to see, actually, we've beaten the game, we've evangelized the world, our mission is complete. But by the way, who was slightly better than somebody else at doing that? You can.
Who has the mega church?
Who has the biggest church? Basically,
the local congregation.
whose head is starting to explode. Yes, you do have the ability to do that if you wish. Yeah.
Nice.
And I think it's probably a good point now that we've kind of explained it a bit, is to recontextualize the idea of how is this. So as you play it as a Christian, you're like, oh yeah, I can see that if we just randomly added millions of people to our church all in one go, that we would have loads of problems, because you'd have loads of people who are like new believers, non-believers, and like outnumbering the people in the church. You can bring all this trouble in, and the troubles, as we said, is like sin, conflict, and spiritual trouble, because it could be that they're just living their old lives, or it could be that they're bringing in conflict because, for example, they were Jewish people and now they're bringing in Jewish opposition from the leadership of, and that sort of thing. And, that's the sort of theme. But then, it's like, well, what can I do about it? And it's in your resources are like pray or use your wisdom as like a group to discern what the problems are. And then once what the problems are, it's like you could either like work together to get, deal with this sin, to what do we call it? Intercession. Yeah. Or you could just pray and hope that you pull out a really powerful heaven card, and then God comes along and stops the conflict, stops the sinning, gets rid of the demons or whatever. So there's different ways you can do it, and depending on the sort of strategy you go for. That's why we call it this sort of strategy card game, because there are different strategies you can go for. And as we talked about prophecy, so you can go heavily into prophecy and be like, well, we're just going to know what's coming all the time so that you can plan efficiently. So I'm going to prophesy and figure out who we're going to speak to when we go out, so that I'm going to put just the right number of people to deal with it, or I'm going to prophesy to figure out what the problems are, so that again we can prioritize the ones that are real big ones and all this sort of stuff. So it is it's really fun. And there was one last little thing, which was Paul mentioned about scoring. It's a very minor part of the game, but one of the things that we think, obviously this is a very sort of Christian heavy game, and it's mostly going to be Christians who pick it up, but we hope that they'll be playing it with their non-Christian friends. And I just think there's a lot of theological kind of questions that are going to, or like not questions, but like it's going to start making them have questions. Like, so for example, if you can get a persecution, loads of people in your church get killed, well, they're dead, but you still score them, because even though you can't use them, they're dead. They were still saved. Whereas the people who weren't in the church weren't saved. They don't score. Right? They're not saved in the time. So this is the kind of like questions and like how suffering is part of life, but how people can deal with suffering with wisdom, or God can come and alleviate suffering with prayer and session. So all these kind of things are really exciting themes for people to kind of like, oh, okay, think about.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it should open up some good discussions. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so when I think of a standard deck of cards, it's about 52 cards. But I'm guessing this is not that kind of deck of cards. So when someone receives this, what's it going to look like? What is a set of cards look like? What are the different kinds of cards? You've mentioned a couple of them, but what is the kind of the look and the layout when you receive your package?
Okay, so there are around 200 or so cards in the game. And the game is minimally packaged. Actually, there'll be on the Kickstarter there'll be maybe some options for the actual package, but the idea is that it's very portable. So the game is primarily card based, so cards and rules with more on online digital rulebook with lots of illustrations and so on. So it's designed to be small and portable. Think. Well, a box, a box. I can't show you it just now, but it's a box of 200 or so cards. Okay, the sorting of the cards, each card type. So there is the world deck, which represents the people in the world. So that's certain face and certain back. Okay. There is the heaven deck, which again different type of face of card and different back. There are activity cards which are spread into the world, so it allows extra abilities or activities that the churches could do. So when you're actually evangelizing, some of the cards that are in the world are going to be activities that the church can engage in. So it gives a randomness to the preaching, if you like, as to the response to that preach. So they're mixed into the world deck. There is the event deck, which has its own back. Okay, and yeah, that's it. Those are the cards. Yeah.
It's not a very big game, and as I was at a gaming night last night, I was like, the games that are in small boxes are the games that get played, because you can actually take them with you, whereas the massive table filling 1 meter square box that you have to take with you, to play some games, it's just like, I'm never going to get that out, and it's never going to fit on a table. So that's what's good about this. It is compact, and 52 playing cards you can visualize. It's just 4 of those together, basically. It's got a little leaflet inside which gives you the rules, and away you go.
Awesome. Well, what is, for each of you, what is kind of your favorite mechanic, the favorite feature or favorite card in this game?
Okay, so I'm not going to give away my favorite card, but I think my favorite mechanic is the preaching, the outreach. Okay, because there is a tension between reaching lots of people to bring lots of people into your church, because you desperately want them to be saved. You desperately want them to help grow the church. But of course, the more that you bring into the church, the more difficulty you're going to have, most likely because they can bring in their own troubles and their own problems. So that can damage your church. So there is a real tension between, do I go out to preach to lots of people because I know that there's going to be maybe persecution coming, or I know that there's a reason for doing this turn, and I go and so I want to preach. I want to make a really good preach. I want to draw lots of people in, and then I'll suffer. I know I will suffer because they're likely to bring in all sorts of different problems. And if I don't deal with those, that will kill my church. So I can't allow the sin and the conflicts to wrangle around. I need to deal with those. So you find yourself with this kind of flow of dealing with certain situations as they arrive. So my favourite would be outreach, but I'm not going to say about my card.
Well, for me, I think it's probably the ones I mentioned, which is the events that kill lots of people all at once, because it's just so sudden. You're like, I've used these guys loads of times. I've just got used to how they work, and this guy's got a spiritual gift, and and we put these two together. Half of them, a third of them are dead now. So, but then also the fact that it is pretty rare, but some of the characters can resurrect people. So there's a couple of the apostles can do it, and then there's a heaven card that can do it, and stuff like that. So you just I'm going to bring back that guy with with those spiritual gifts, that good combination, and I'm going to bring him back, and then he's going to, so he's back from the dead. Those are really good. There's quite a few miracles like that are on theme for Acts and for the Bible in general. As we said, prophecy and all these kind of quite powerful things. But it is good. It's funny because the cards are all kind of mostly on a level with each other, and then you get these some of the events are really powerful, and then some of the miracles are really powerful. So you're this is not this is not on the same scale. It's wiping out the whole thing. So you'll get a normal card will be take away one sin, and then you get a God card. It's take away all the sin in all the church. It's it's a pretty cool cards that are different power levels basically within the game.
One thing that I don't think we mentioned too much, but on as you could expect in a tableau or an engine builder type game, the cards have got abilities that combo with all the other cards. So certain members have got actions and abilities that will affect how they can work within your church and with other people. So you do build combinations of people or teams together that can do various things really well. So that can be quite entertaining.
Awesome. Well, before we ask where they can find it and where they can find the Kickstarter and all that, is there anything else that you want to share about the game that maybe we haven't discussed or I wasn't aware of?
I think I'm good.
I think we did cover the game, yeah. I mean, it's just really there's that application of people if you get it and then get some friends to the table who aren't Christian, I think they will appreciate the mechanics and actually enjoy the game once you've convinced them to play. And I do think that the upshot will be that they'll be like, oh, do you really believe in prophecy? Do you and all this sort of stuff, like miracles and God, and I can see how sin of one person affects like a whole group and all this sort of stuff. These sort of big themes that I just think is going to leave people wondering about, and that and that's good, and that will open discussions. And we hope that they'll go off and read the comic, and then maybe they'll read the Bible, and then So these are all kind of things that really hopeful about, and I just think people have fun playing it.
Awesome. Well, tell us when they can get it and where they can find out information. And I know the Kickstarter is starting very soon.
Yeah, so it's going to be there on Kickstarter. The link will be, appended to the video. But if you get lost, just head straight to the Word for Word Bible Comic website, wordforwordbiblecomic.com. The direct one is wordforwordbiblecomic.com, and then it's like /the-great-commission. But you head to the homepage, you'll find it, and and get ready to Kickstarter. You can sign up to the newsletter and you'll get notified as soon as it goes live. The newsletter also gives you like a free sample of the comics and all this sort of stuff as well. But you'll be ready then when the moment it launches. You'll get an email saying it's live, and then you'll get another one just before, like a few days before the end, say it's finishing. Did you do it? Get a chance to back.
Awesome. If anybody wants to get their copy, definitely make sure you get signed up. Because we're recording this earlier, I'm not sure if the Kickstarter will be started already or not. But if not, then sign up. If it is, definitely go get yours soon. And I guess the last question is, because the Kickstarter hasn't started yet, I can't see this information. How much is this going to cost, or and what does that all look like?
Okay, so if people get in early bird, it will be £29 plus postage. After that, it will be £35 plus postage. And then there's just like a whole bunch of add-ons, t-shirts. We plan to have a neoprene mat. We've got the books, digital books of the comics and all that stuff. But it's a relatively straightforward thing. We've got the game, and if you get in fast, you get it cheaper. So
awesome. Well, Simon, Paul, it has been great having you on the Christian Nerds Unite podcast today. And definitely look in the show notes down below for all the links.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
It was great getting to know Simon and Paul and hearing about the Great Commission strategic card game. To back the game or to hear more about some of their other projects, click down in the show notes below. That's all I have for you today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, click all the links, whatever they are down there. That way you can keep up with us anytime we put out new content. You can find all of our social links to our YouTube channel, and to our online store at ChristianNerdsUnite.com. If you enjoy the show and want to help even more, consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. All of our Patreon levels have great benefits, and it makes a huge difference in the ministry we're able to do. Supporters will also get to hear exciting stories, exclusive stories of believers we're serving around the world through our ministry partners. To check it out or to partner with us, go to patreon.com/ChristianNerdsUnite or ChristianNerdsUnite.com and click support in the menu. And don't forget to check out ChristianNerdHQ.com for more great podcasts. Before you go, I do want to leave you with this blessing from Jude. To him who is able to keep you from stumbling, and to present you before his glorious presence without fault and with great joy, to the only God our Savior, be glory, majesty, power, and authority through Jesus Christ our Lord, before all ages, now and evermore. Amen. We'll see you next week. Blessings.